Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody's doing okay out there in this crazy world. For the better part of this video, I'm going to be discussing this castle in the Czech Republic. I'll be going over some images of this 14th century castle and also a little bit of the narrative gibberish that they give us. But before I get started with that, I'm just going to go through some random pictures, and they do kind of relate back to this castle also. And what's that saying? The more you see, the less you know. It kind of works both ways, doesn't it? Also another quote. There's simply no polite way to tell people they've dedicated their lives to an illusion. That picture kind of explains it right there. The 15,000 hour indoctrinated fool system kind of steers everybody away from what's actually out there, from ruins or whatever else. We could have seen some of these types of pictures, older pictures, and really never thought anything about it, just because of what we were taught and what we were shown in the past. But it's pretty obvious that something is off in this electric realm that we're in. One thing is for certain, we can obviously tell that they have taken the technology that was found, called it temples or whatever, and then changed it into cheap electric or whatever kind of technology they're throwing at us that they've hidden, and give us little bits and pieces of it every now and then. The deception is so easy to see now, at least for me and many other people, I'm assuming. But just looking around the realm and checking this stuff out, and why does it look like this, and will there be any kind of structure in any century that they tell us. Been so programmed to just walk by all these old sites or ruins and just look at the plaques and trust the words on the pages or books or gift shops. But when you really look at this stuff closely, again, it doesn't make sense, and I'll repeat that over and over again, because all you have to do is just look closely. Why does this construction change and morph, and why do these bricks melt? Why do they change the state of matter, and how did they do that? There's evidence over and over again that something crazy happened here. And when you look at it, you're seeing construction change, in this case, to coral. A coral-like structure. So have examples of stuff cooking from the inside out, whether it be bricks or some stone or anything like that. But how does this stuff change like this? And of course, there's been repurposing of many buildings, trying to hide stuff, cover stuff up, and rebuild it. But just things like this, what's going on here? Why does some of this look coral-like? Little moment of silence for this shot. And we're back. This could be under the ocean with some growth on it, and it would be a coral reef. I will make reference back to this kind of stuff in the castle that I'll be showing here in a minute. But how did this happen right here? That's just nutty looking, and it's not just going to change by weather or anything else they say on any kind of narrative. And then they'll call that millions of years. Well, why do they look exactly the same? Probably because they got cooked out in an extreme event we don't know about. So let's get into it. Thanks, everybody. So we'll start out with a little narrative here of the castle. Bradlec Castle was built in the 14th century. It was a rock tower built to watch over the merchant route that crossed the mountains. The castle was owned by important Czech noble families. Somewhat of a description here. The history of the castle is very rich. It had always been in the possession of important Czech noble families. Important, okay? It is even possible, remember that word, possible, that it was owned by Emperor Charles IV. The castle, located on two basalt hills, used to provide excellent defense against riders. So they're doing this against riders, okay, and defense. Up to the present time, the remnants of the three walls are visible, former tower, and fragments of the walls and contours of the building. On the western side, on the vertical rock, there is a little platform that offers a spectacular view. Another tidbit here: preserved remains of the castle, three walls of the tower, and remains of the walls. The castle was in the ownership of significant Czech families, supposedly even Charles IV. So they use the word supposedly and then possible in this one. Okay, now here's a rendition of it. You see how steep it is in the picture, and it is actually really steep. That they're building this supposedly in the 1300s for riders somewhere way down here, apparently. It's another narrative. Of course, they don't give much specifics about it, and it just happened to go from this to just ruins somehow. And we're just supposed to take that at face value. The short narratives they just mention rocks, building with rocks basically. It doesn't say anything about bricks, but they also see bricks in the construction. Pretty sure this wasn't after the fact, but I don't know. I don't live there. But you see this mysterious stuff in here, all red. I'm sure it was the brick that changed into this state of matter here. It's very interesting how you're going to build something like this in the 1300s and you have this changing here to this red blocky bricky stuff, and then it goes to this clay-like material, and then you have slate, rock, little bitty rocks, looks like brick here, and obvious brick on the archway right here. Very awkward build for the time. This is bulging out right here, going into the rock that was, I guess, supposedly built for this watchtower. To me, it's just a transformation of mostly a brick and mortar building, outer covering, and it just changed completely in an event. And this is all you have left of this, what they say it was a pretty big structure on this vertical steep hill. Let's see what's going on here. We've got bricks, obvious bricks here, but barely left over where you could officially tell that there's a bricks, and don't think this was repurposed, but of course I don't know. Just seeing with my eyes here, and why again would you build like this in the 13th century? And they were saying this was a huge, extravagant castle up on a steep cliff hill, and it just changed to this through the years. No big deal, just believe a few paragraphs, and kings and queens and very important people had a watchtower, a watch castle, and this is what you have left. Here's a pretty crazy shot to me. So here's a structure here, but I'm thinking, and it looks to me like this whole thing was the structure. You can see the lines kind of bending down and over. I'm sure they call this natural right here and all this, but it's merging into this rocky structure that was supposedly built in the 1300s, and it gradually goes down this line, possibly melting down. So let's look closely at this one. So you have these blocks, and they're turning that coral almost look like I was showing earlier. But what is all of this? It's right under these what look like blocks. It's just a mess. How did this become like this? Looks like it's kind of jetted out a little bit. Could have been a whole nother structure here. And you have this side, which I'll show in a minute. What would cause that? I mean, I can't think of anything logically that would cause this. And were they just picking up things, different material around from the very steep mountain? Here's another angle of that wall here. Honestly, though, what would cause this right here looks like it's transitioning into what we have here is clay and stuff, and I think these used to be bricks, for a fact, but looks pretty obvious to me. You even have a brick impression here, probably fell out. But you have these thin, what looks like blocks that go deep, but they don't really go that deep. It continues up here with this supposed block here. Could be the outer covering they blocked up in the electrical event. The main question is, what does this over time? No matter what the narrative is. Like, who cares? You can't explain it with any of the stupid stuff they say. To me, in my perspective, this, what would be probably called nature, or that was there and they built on top of this or whatever. This was the building, part of the building, and it's slanted down. This is even more slanted down this way, almost vertical. Then you look up here and you have all of this rock and bricks and everything you can imagine, basically. Back in 1300 and whatever, they just gathered all this stuff and mashed it together and mortared it together or whatever. Of course, they don't say anything about that, but that's what the public is assuming. If they want any historical records on this stuff, well, there's nothing except for a few paragraphs and some words, and a few kings here and there. Here's that spot with the bulge here, transitioning. Pretty sure you wouldn't put all this stuff together and then do this, and then it just happened to change like this over the years. A little closer shot of that. What is this doing? They all have holes in them, basically. I don't know what's up with that, but you're not saying you're coring anything, probably back then, but I guess use your own imagination with that. This was probably for something else than just a watchtower or watch castle. Most of these aren't even complete bricks. These were bricks. And why would you just do that right here? Also very cold. Seems like. Here's some snow. But even the depiction of the picture has snow everywhere. It's pretty sure that country is cold natured, especially in the wintertime. So you're putting all this together when it's very cold, which that's pretty hard to do, especially when you're trying to mortar stuff together. But here's another angle of that, and you have that almost turning coral look. How did it happen? How does that change like that? You have these over here to the right. It's not quite like these to the left. And there's holes in every one of them. And most of them are very thin. as I was showing before. You go down in one a little bit, and here's your archway. And then you have these blocks or bricky type things. And then it just goes to what we are taught as nature and rock, stone. You're supposedly building stuff like this, and you would call this man-made with this, and it drifts into whatever this is, half almost nature, but it's structure and it's leaned down like it's coming down. See down here? It's coming over, melting from under itself, probably. Let's just put our thinking caps on for 1 second. What's going on here? This is not exactly the best spot to put something like this. Again, it was this huge castle, watchtower. You can see the angle here, the 90-degree. And why does this all look different? Supposedly built about the same time, 1300 and whatever the heck they want to say. On the other side here, we've got blockiness, straight lines going this way, and if you're building something, you're just going to go from this to these, but you can see how it's changing. It's just a fine line, but what would cause all of this? Look at all these holes. It's just crazy. All these holes. A complete mess. I don't think any architect would like to put this together, especially in this different fashion, and seems like different materials at first glance. Rock, clay, slate, throw in some bricks every now and then, blocks. We're just going to go all in. Everything we can find in the whole area on this steep hill. It's going to be fantastic. King will be proud.
Boom.